Welcome back to the deep dive. We have a really fascinating stack of documents in front of us today. And I have to be honest with you, when I first saw the company name on top, I almost put it aside.
Oh, yeah. Why is that?
Because on the surface, this company sounds like the definition of industrial boring. I mean, we are talking commercial cleaning, water treatment, hygiene.
Right.
You hear those words and you probably picture what, janitors, mop buckets, maybe that distinct chlorine smell at a public pool. It just feels so analog.
It definitely doesn't scream Silicon Valley, does it?
Yeah.
You see the logo on a soap dispenser in a restaurant bathroom, and future of tech is not the first thing that comes to mind.
Exactly. But here's the hook, and this is why I wanted to pull this thread today. We are looking at Ecolab ticker is ECL, and specifically their Q4 2025 earnings report, which just dropped on February 10th. And the picture that emerges from these transcripts, it isn't really about cleaning anymore, or, well, not just cleaning. It looks a lot more like they're trying to become the guardians of the entire AI revolution.
It's a classic pivot, isn't it? It's almost a picks and shovels play. But for the 21st century, everyone's chasing the gold rush, the AI chips, the models, the chatbots.
Right.
But Ecolab is quietly building the physical infrastructure that lets all of that even exist.
And judging by the numbers, it's working. Before we dive into the sci-fi stuff, and we will get to water recycling for supercomputers, let's ground this in the financials. How did they actually do in 2025?
It was a record year. Just looking at Q4, they posted an adjusted EPS of $2.08.
So they beat estimates.
By a penny, yeah. Now, beating by a penny is fine, but the bigger trend is what's important here. Sales, margins, free cash flow, all of them were at record levels for the full year.
And they seem pretty bullish on what's next, too.
Very. Looking ahead to 2026, the guidance is confident. They're projecting, 12 to 15% earnings growth?
Which for a massive industrial company like this, that's huge. That is double-digit growth. You usually see these giants inching along at, 2 or 3%.
Exactly. And they're projecting 3 to 4% organic sales growth. So that's coming from actually selling more stuff, not just buying other companies.
Yeah.
But the real story, and what the CEO spent a lot of time on, is what they call their growth engines.
Okay.
This is where the real transformation is happening.
So let's unpack that, because the first growth engine they talked about is global high tech. And reading through the transcript, I had to double check I wasn't reading an NVIDIA report. What on earth is the connection between a hygiene company and artificial intelligence?
It all comes down to physics, really.
Yeah.
We think of AI as living in the cloud, right? This sort of ethereal, weightless thing.
Yeah.
But the cloud is just millions of servers packed into these huge concrete data centers. And those servers get incredibly hot. And even before that, the chips that run them, they're made in factories that use just unbelievable amounts of water.
I saw a stat in the source material about the resource demand for the AI build-out by 2030.
Yep.
It was pretty shocking.
It is staggering. They estimate that by 2030, the incremental need for power, so just the extra electricity for this boom, will equal the entire consumption of India.
Wow. Okay, that's the power side. We hear about that. Grid strain, all of that. But Ecolab is a water company.
Right. And here's the kicker. The incremental freshwater need. It's projected to equal the water usage of the entire United States.
Hold on, let me just pause there. The entire United States. Just for the growth in tech.
Correct. That's the estimate. And that's the real bottleneck. You can, in theory, build more power plants. You can burn more gas or build more solar, but you can't just make more fresh water.
You have to manage what you have.
You have to. If you don't solve the water problem, the AI revolution literally, well, it dries up.
So Ecolab is basically selling water insurance for the future of tech. Let's break this down into the two parts they talked about. First, the manufacturing side. The fabs that make the chips. Why are they so thirsty?
Well, making a microchip is this incredibly complex chemical process. You're layering materials, and then you have to wash these silicon wafers over and over and over again
To get them clean.
to get them perfectly clean. And you can't use tap water. You can't even use, Brita filtered water. You need something called ultra pure water.
Okay, define ultra pure for me, like distilled water.
Oh, much, much purer. Think about water for medical injections, stuff going right into your bloodstream. That's sterile.
Right.
The water for microchips has to be 1,000 times purer than that.
1,000 times. Wow. So we were talking about water where literally every single molecule that isn't H2O has been stripped out.
Exactly. One tiny impurity, a speck of dust, a stray ion, it can destroy the chip.
Yeah.
And the scale of this, it's just massive. They mentioned a single semiconductor fab in Korea on the call. Just one factory
Yeah.
It requires the water equivalent of a city of 17 million people.
That is hard to wrap your head around. One factory needs as much water as a megacity.
Yes. Think of New York City and then double it. That's the water footprint. And these fabs are being built in places like Arizona, where water is not exactly an infinite resource.
No.
And this is where their acquisition of the company called Ovivo comes in. It was a huge part of the Q4 story. Ovivo specializes in what they call circular water solutions.
Circular meaning recycling.
Exactly. But recycling ultra-pure water is incredibly hard because of those purity standards we just talked about. So with Ovivo, Ecolab goes to these chip makers and says, look, we can take your wastewater, treat it, and bring it back to that ultra-pure standard to be used again.
And what kind of numbers are we talking about? How much can they actually recycle?
The goal is to move the industry from maybe 5% water reuse, which is kind of the standard now, up to 80 or even 100%.
So if you're a chip manufacturer, the service isn't really optional. I mean, not if you want to expand in a place like Arizona. You either recycle or you get shut down by the state.
Precisely. It turns water from a consumable, something you use, up into a reusable asset. It closes the loop. That's a huge value proposition.
Okay, so that's one side. The other side is the data centers. Once the chips are made, they go into servers, and those servers get hot.
Very hot. And historically, you used air cooling. Giant fans, basically. Or cooling towers, which evaporate tons of water. But as chips get more powerful, especially for AI, they just run too hot for air. They'd melt.
So they're switching to liquid.
Yes, direct-to-chip liquid cooling. Fluid is circulating right up against the chip, pulling the heat away. And Ecolab is launching this as direct-to-chip cooling as a service.
Cooling as a service. That's an interesting phrase. So they're not just selling a jug of the liquid?
No, and that is the critical business shift.
Yeah.
If they just sold the liquid, it's a commodity. Cooling as a service means they monitor it. They ensure the chemistry of that fluid is perfect in real time so that it doesn't cause problems.
Right.
And the CEO made this great point. By using their system, data centers use less power on cooling fans.
Which frees up power for the actual work.
Exactly. It means they can direct more of that precious power to compute. So Ecolab is saying, hire us, and your supercomputer gets faster because it wastes less energy just trying not to overheat.
So they're monetizing uptime, efficiency.
Yeah.
It's a shift from selling a product to selling a performance outcome.
It's wild to think that a company you associate with soap dispensers is essential for NVIDIA to keep running. But that's where we are.
Let's pivot. We've talked high-tech water. Let's talk about another growth engine from the report. It's a little grosser,
Right.
but apparently very profitable. Cockroaches.
Ah, yes, the pest elimination segment. This is a huge, steady business for them. It grew 7% in Q4.
The report kept mentioning pest intelligence. I have to admit, the idea of smart roach traps is kind of fascinating. It sounds like something from a spy movie, but for bugs. What's actually happening here?
It's the digitization of pest control. I mean, think about how it usually works. A guy comes to a restaurant maybe once a month.
Right.
He walks around with a flashlight, checks a trap, sees if anything's in it. It's totally reactive. You only know there's a problem after you've caught something.
Or a customer sees something, and by then, it could be a real infestation.
Exactly. So Ecolab is flipping that. They are deploying smart devices. They expect to have over 1 million of them in the field in 2026. And these devices, they talk to the cloud.
So the trap texts you when it catches a roach.
Basically, yeah. It gives them real-time data on where pests are active. This allows for what they call 99% pest relocation.
Pest relocation. That is the most polite corporate euphemism for killing bugs I have ever heard in my life. We're not killing them, we're just relocating them to the great beyond.
It's very polite. But the business logic is sound. If you have sensors telling you exactly where the problem is, you don't have to blanket spray an entire building.
You can be targeted.
And for Ecolab, it means their technicians aren't wasting hours checking empty traps.
That's a good point. If you know the trap's empty, you don't send a person to go look at it.
Right. They can spend that time solving real problems or, and this is key, selling more services.
Yeah.
It makes the whole operation more scalable. You don't need 10,000 new technicians if the devices are doing the monitoring for you.
And I've got to imagine the margins on these recurring digital services are just fantastic compared to selling buckets of chemicals.
Oh, absolutely. And it ties into their whole digital strategy. They mentioned this 100, 100, 100 vision for their digital business, which is already a $400 million business.
100, 100, 100, 100. What does that stand for?
It's their vision. 100% of customer locations connected, 100% of applications connected, and this is the key part for investors, 100% billable.
That last part is the interesting one. 100% billable.
It is. A lot of industrial companies give away data as a value add. Buy our soap, get a free report on usage. Ecolab wants to charge for the insight itself. They want to monetize every byte of that data.
Because the data helps the customer save money.
Exactly. And speaking of high-tech, we should quickly touch on life sciences before we move on. That was another one of their growth areas.
Right, that division grew 7% as well. This is separate from the water and pests. It's focused on bioprocessing, biopharma.
So making drugs, basically.
Hmm.
Purifying the huge bioreactors that create modern medicines is a very similar story to the chips. You need extremely high standards of purity. And they're targeting long-term operating margins of 30% there.
30%.
So it's a smaller part of the business now, but it's very high growth and very high margin.
Okay, so we have the growth engines, tech, pest, life sciences. But then there's the internal story. How is Ecolab running itself? The report talks about one Ecolab and using AI internally. The use of the term agentic AI.
And this is a really important distinction. A lot of companies say they're using AI, and it just means their marketing team has a ChatGPT subscription.
Right, it's a productivity tool to write emails.
Exactly. But Ecolab was ranked number 9 on the Fortune list of most AI-prepared companies. That's higher than a lot of actual tech companies. Agentic AI implies autonomous agent software that can actually do things, not just summarize text.
Give me an example of what that means for them in practice.
Okay, so think about their supply chain. Imagine a shipment is delayed by a storm. Instead of a human having to track it, realize it's late, call around, reroute it, and then email the customer.
Yeah.
An agent can do all of that. It sees the delay, calculates the best new route, updates the logistics system, and notifies the client. All autonomously.
And they're using this to strip out costs.
Aggressively. They raised their savings target for this one Ecolab program to $325 million by 2027. That's way up from previous targets. And here's the stat that jumped out at me. Sales productivity, so sales per employee, is up nearly 30% over the last 5 years.
That's a huge jump. 30% more sales from the same number of people.
It is. It's an efficiency machine. And that gives them a buffer to maintain those margins even if costs go up.
I want to touch on this concept they call TVD, or total value delivered. The CEO kept coming back to it. It sounds like marketing speak, but it seems to be at the core of how they set prices.
It's their entire justification for raising prices. It's actually brilliant. I've seen most companies use a cost-plus model. This bucket cost me $10 to make, so I'll sell it to you for $12.
Right.
Ecolab uses value pricing. They go to a customer and say, look, our tech saved you $1 million in water bills and $500,000 in energy this year. That is $1.5 million in value we delivered to your bottom line. So we're raising our price by 3%, which is only $50,000 to you.
They prove the savings first, then take a small cut of the winnings.
Exactly. It totally changes the conversation from cost to investment. If I hand you $100, are you going to complain if I charge you $5 for doing it? Probably not. And that's why they think they can keep raising prices 2 to 3% every year, no matter what inflation is doing.
Okay, we've been singing their praises, and the report was clearly strong. But it wasn't all perfect. There were some headwinds. What's dragging on them?
The main drag is in what they call paper and basic industries. These are very cyclical sectors. And right now, the paper industry is struggling. Mills are consolidating, they're closing down.
That feels like a slow-motion decline we've been watching for decades.
It is, but the impact can be sudden. The CEO mentioned that when a paper mill closes, it's not a small thing for them. A single mill uses so much water and so many chemicals. Losing one of those customers can mean $10 to $15 million in sales just vanishing overnight.
Ouch.
So when the paper industry gets a cold, that division of Ecolab gets pneumonia. To say it's stabilizing, but they were very careful not to, declare victory yet.
There was also a really strange blip in their institutional sales, so hotels and restaurants. Distributor inventories went down, and the reason they gave was fascinating. They basically got penalized for being too good at their job.
This is a classic supply chain paradox.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, think back to the pandemic. Everybody hoarded everything because you didn't know if the truck would show up next week.
Right. Safety stock, just in case.
Exactly. Well, Ecolab's supply chain has become so reliable, partly because of that AI we talked about, that their distributors had a realization. They thought, wait a minute, if I order soap from Ecolab, it shows up exactly when they say it will, every single time. I don't need to keep 6 months of it sitting in my warehouse.
So they just stopped ordering for a bit?
They paused just to burn off that extra safety stock they were holding. They're destocking because they trust Ecolab to deliver on time.
So sales dropped because they were too good.
In the short term, yes. It looks like a sales miss, but underneath, it's a sign of incredible operational excellence. They expect it to normalize, but it's a funny example of how being too efficient can temporarily ding the top line.
That is a good problem to have, I suppose.
Yeah.
So let's try to put this all together. You've got a company hitting record numbers, pivoting into high-tech water for AI, rolling out smart pest control, using AI to slash costs. What's the final take? Is this a chemical company or a tech infrastructure play?
It's a company in transition, and I think that's the most exciting kind of company to watch. They're using the massive cash flow from their legacy business to fund this rapid expansion into high-tech infrastructure.
Yeah.
They're making a bet that the world is getting more resource-constrained, not less.
Right.
And in a world where water is critical for technology, Ecolab becomes more like a utility than just another vendor.
It really reframes how you look at that stock ticker, ECL. It's not soap. It's the liquid cooling that keeps the internet alive.
Precisely. And with that 12 to 15% growth projection, they're betting the market is going to realize that too. They're telling investors, hey, we are not a slow growth industrial anymore, we are a growth compounder.
So why should the average person care about any of this?
I think it means we have to broaden our definition of a tech stock. You can look at NVIDIA and Microsoft, sure, but you also have to look at the physical things that limit them. Ecolab is betting that water is the hard limit on Moore's Law. If you believe in the AI future, you have to believe someone's going to solve the water problem. Ecolab is just raising his hand and saying, we got this.
And that brings us to our final thought for this deep dive. We spend so much time worrying about if we'll have enough computing power for the future of AI. Will we have enough chips? Will we have enough electricity?
But when you look at Ecolab's data, especially that stat, one factory needing a city's worth of water, the real bottleneck might not be silicon at all. It might be water.
Exactly. And that raises a really tough question. If a region hits a mega drought and you have to choose between water for 17 million people or water for the one semiconductor fab that powers the global economy, who gets priority?
That is the conflict of the next century.
And Ecolab's entire business model is basically promising that if you buy their technology, you might never have to make that choice. They're selling the solution to a resource war before it even begins.
That's a very powerful place to be.
It certainly is. That's a wrap on our deep dive into Ecolab's Q4 2025 earnings. Thanks for listening, and we will catch you on the next one.